Get Fooled Again selection.
Yeah.
I think that's a great cover by the band, Studio or Live, or whatever you want to call it. I do think, like you pointed out, Dave, Pound Cake is missing. I think that's a great one.
Yeah.
What was the other
Humans
one?
Being. Humans Being.
Humans Being was the other one, and the first song off the 5150 album.
That's good enough, but I didn't put
Good
that
enough.
on my... Okay, all right,
no,
you felt
I know.
like that was missing.
I like Good Enough.
You're a big Good Enough fan. Okay.
I am a big Good Enough fan.
I love that song.
I was going to say I could do without Doing Time. Just balance.
Baluch Ethereum is fine.
But your point is well taken. There are a lot of great Rockin' Sammy songs. They do tend to get overlooked because, all the hits with Sam tend to be poppy and stuff like that.
Right.
There's definitely good Sam stuff. You just got to go digging a little to find it.
Absolutely. Letter number 2 comes from Mark O'Brien, and he says, "Hey guys, great show as always. Although it's not a popular opinion, my favorite Van Hagar album has always been Balance. I felt they were finally hitting their stride and made a mature hard rock album that was perfect for the time. The only issue I ever had with it was that there was some fat on it, so I decided to trim back the fat and get rid of the instrumentals and that horrific song, Big Fat Money." So this is what his version of Balance, which he calls Balanced. Okay, so it's Seventh Seal, Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do, Can't Stop Loving You, Amsterdam, Not Enough, Aftershock, Take Me Back, Deja Vu, and Feelin'. Well, Mark, I have to tell you, you left Baluch Ethereum off that list, and I am sorry. I think that is a key track on Balance. I would remove Not Enough. I would add Crossing Over, and I would keep Big Fat Money. Even though it's lyrically thin, there's some incredible performance on Big Fat Money from the band. So that's where I stand. Dave, what do you think?
I agree with your assessment and song selections. I don't like What Ifs to begin with. So when people start going down the rabbit hole of redoing album track listings and things like that, I'm kind of like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but, that's what they picked, and that's where we are. Sometimes you just can't second guess an artist's decision. It's always easier in 2020 hindsight to pick the best of the best and the cream of the crop. So
I would also rename the album what the album was originally named. Do you know what that is, Dave?
No, what was that?
The album was originally named The Seventh Seal. That was the original name for the album, so I would have gone with that. Letter number 3 comes from Chris Nays from St. Louis, Missouri. He says, "My name is Chris, and I'm from St. Louis. I found your podcast via Clint from Metal Up Your Podcast. I'm 35 and only saw Van Halen once in 2007, but it was an amazing show. I'm writing to tell you that Eddie's death has led me to rediscovering all of Van Halen's music. I had planned a trip to Los Angeles, which took place in October of 18th through the 22nd, in which I visited the Van Halen Kerbin Memorial in front of Eddie's Clocks/liquor store hangout in Pasadena, as well as the Guitar Center handprints and memorial on Sunset, and I got a photo from Sunset Sound. The whole time I was there, I blasted Van Halen while exploring the city, the beach, and the mountain trails. It was the perfect soundtrack, and I highly recommend you and your listeners going someday and doing the same. I look forward to making my way through all of your podcasts." Chris Nays. Well, Chris, it's nice to see a 35-year-old discovering the magic of Van Halen, so thank you so much for that, and we welcome you aboard. Dave, you have anything to say?
No, welcome aboard. It's a fun ride.
That's right. Well, Dave, we've come to that point in the podcast, and you know who he is, and here he's on his way.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's
Midwest fucking Ron. That's right, it is Midwest fucking Ron. And he starts off very gentle, Dave. Very gentle. He says, "Dave's, congrats on another excellent podcast. I don't know how you did it in the wake of Eddie's passing. I imagine that hundreds of thousands of grown men got something in your eyes when the news broke, and women too. Your top 10 EVH moments were great picks. After hearing the clips, I am encouraged to sit down and re-listen to Eddie's awesome rhythm playing, which never seemed to get the credit it deserved. Thanks for all your work that you put into making these lists." So you see, he sets me all up. I feel all good and warm and fuzzy. And then he lays down the hammer. And
He's good that way.
Yeah, he's very tricky. He's very tricky, Ron. So
no, he's just considerate of your feelings.
That's right. Well, Ron, being the executioner that he is, lays down the gauntlet, and he says, Louder Dave's memory fail. Chuck Klosterman's 131 Van Halen songs ranked from worst to best was discussed in episode 33 in September of 2018. Jump to 29 minutes and 20 seconds to refresh your memory and enjoy your 11-minute rant.
Rant.
So let our listeners back. So I came across this list, noting that it was an old list, but I brought it up to Dave. What was it, like 2 podcasts ago, maybe? And
Something
I
like
said,
that, yeah.
I don't think we ever discussed this. And Dave says, yes, we have. And I said, no, we haven't. And he says, yes, we have. And he says, you're going to be sorry. And I am sorry. Because because Midwest Ron, you know, the minute he heard that, he went digging. That's what he does. That's what he does best, right? So Ron is always out there. He's always checking all the numbers and all the statistics. You can't fuck with Ron on statistics. He will kill you. So I'm taking it like a man. I'm bending over, and go ahead, Dave. It's time for you to celebrate and get out your party hats and your noisemakers.
Man, this is like Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa all rolled up into one.
Yep. And it's always you and Ron conspiring. It's incredible how that works.
Well, you stick to your conspiracy theories.
I know. What can I tell you? I'm getting old and feeble, and all I can say is, Elizabeth, this is the big one. I'm coming, Elizabeth.
I just like to thank Ron to verify that I wasn't going completely crazy.
Right.
I imagined that we had got over that.
The funny thing is that, I think it was Shannon the Dude who pointed it out, was I saw that he put Why Can't This Be Love, I think it was the last on the list, and I was like, how could I not remember that? Because that's such a striking move to do something like that.
That's what surprised me.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I'm getting it up to Keister as usual, and thank you, Midwest Ron, for keeping me honest. So we appreciate you as usual, and we are on to letter number 5, which comes from Kentucky Todd. I love how our listeners are all giving themselves nicknames.
I know, right? It's like everybody's got to be from a geographic, point in the world, and it's got to be part of your name.
So what do we have? We have Midwest Ron, Southeast Nice Guy Kurt, we have Montana Dan, now we have Kentucky Todd. Oh my God, this is great.
Don't forget, well, Jay from Half Moon Bay.
You're right, Air Force Jay from Half
Moon Bay.
He's actually coming up later in the list. The Air Force Jay from Half Moon Bay. Shannon the Dude. Everybody's got a nickname. It's unbelievable.
Well, I guess Shannon the Dude is going to have to be Shannon the Dude from wherever Shannon the Dude is from,
he's a mystery, Shannon. We don't know where he is. He just floats around in the atmosphere.
He's just the dude.
Yeah, he's the dude. He's the dude. And the dude abides. Letter number 5 says, Hello, Daves. I'm a new listener to your podcast, and it's awesome to see that there are other people out there who love the mighty Van Halen as much as I do, especially the classic DLR era. You guys really know your stuff. It's a sad time right now, and I can't believe Ed is really gone, but your podcast has really and truly kept me smiling because while Eddie is no longer with us, the unbelievable music and the band's history will last forever. I just have one question for you. I live in northern Kentucky, the greater Cincinnati, Ohio area. Back in 1985, one of the rock radio stations, the 96 Rock, did a Van Halen A to Z special, and they played the entire Van Halen catalog in alphabetical order from A to Z. And I always wondered if that was unique to 96 Rock or if other stations around the country did something like this. Also, this shows you how big of a Van Halen fan I was. They were absolutely the biggest band in the world at the time, and I never heard of a radio station doing this for any other band. And I've heard Mandatory Metallica, where they played a couple of songs, never a complete catalog. Sorry for the long email. Quiet Dave. Please keep flying the Van Halen flag. Hi, Dave's Kentucky Todd. All right, well, Todd, I have never heard of that. Van Halen A to Z, I would imagine that would be tough to do because I don't think there is a song with every letter in it. However, I think what they used to do on WNEW. Dave, see if you even remember this. This is reaching back to high school. Do you remember when they used to do a shot of VH juice?
I remember when they used to do shots of, that was like...
No, they used to call it a shot of VH juice, and it was like, I guess it was like a twofer, where they would play maybe like a Sam and a Dave, or they would play like, like an old and a new, and they'd like pair two Van Halen songs together, and they think it was called a shot of VH juice, if I remember correctly. But that's the only thing I ever heard of. You ever hear of an A to Z?
Well, I've heard usually it's the Beatles when they do A to Z.
Oh, right, right.
They'll play the Beatles catalog from A to Z.
Good point.
I'm unaware of any other radio stations doing Van Halen from A to Z. And I mean, you don't need a letter. It's just an alphabetical order.
Oh, okay.
It's just a different way and a very interesting way to listen to their catalog from A to Z. You don't necessarily need like every letter, like the X and the Z's filled in. I think I may have seen lists like that over the years. I never actually heard it. I think that would be cool to listen to. So I applaud the radio station for doing it. The only other thing I'll add is your letter wasn't too long at all, actually. So no apology
needed. There you go. That's right. Everybody's letter is in good shape. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. And thanks for letting us know. And I don't know, Dave, maybe we need to make a Spotify playlist of Van Halen.
Yeah, maybe we should do that. That would be fun. Maybe I could do that, Todd. That'd be great. We are on to letter number 6 from Jeff Shrewsbury. He says, "Hi, Dave and Dave. God bless you both and long live Van Halen. Good golly, EVH was on stage 4 in 2017, and all we fans were worried about was another Van Halen album. And Eddie Van Halen was still willing to go out and give us that final tour. As cool as it is to hear all who would have been involved in that tour, Mike, Sam, Dave, Gary, it was also very tough to hear. Today has been an emotional day, with Wolfgang's song and video, which was heart-wrenching, and now this news too. Praying for their family. Thanks, Jeff Shrewsbury." Well, Jeff's a long-time listener and guy who writes in a lot. I don't know, man. Like I said earlier in the news about that tour, I'm just a little confused about that thing. I guess it was more of an idea. I guess that Wolf kind of used her as a tool to kind of help Eddie pull through a little bit. You know what I mean? Like you talk about stuff, they say when someone is having a hard time with their health and you try to focus on things for the future, things for them to, I guess, fight for, stuff like that. But I'm sure that's something he wanted to do, but I don't know how far along it was. It just seemed sort of strange. That Sammy thing has really got me confused as to why Sammy wouldn't have been involved. And Dave was out there talking about it. Remember, Dave? He was like talking in interviews about it. Like, what the hell was that? I mean, it's so funny because you hear Wolf, and I understand his whole point. Like, he came up with the idea, approached it to his dad, and he's like, hey, when you get better, okay, that sounds great. I understand that. But then it's like the other side, you got like Irving, like booking Yankee Stadium and calling Mike, and it's like, what the fuck was that? I guess he jumped the gun, which apparently is what Wolf said, but, maybe he was trying to like set pieces up, but the weird part is like they had specific bands in mind they were going to play with. I'm so curious if we'll ever find out, like, really how far along did that go? But according to Wolf, right around his birthday of that year is when it all just shut down. So you figure, mid-March. I mean, that's not too far out from the summer, but I guess that's when it all fell apart. I don't know if it was like in January or something like that of that year they started, but I mean, Eddie just didn't sound like he was in any shape to do something like that. So that's what's so confusing. I mean, when you start hearing about the stories of, my God, what this man went through that we had no clue about. I mean, there was stuff in there about him having a motorcycle accident. What the fuck? Who knew about that? On top of the cancer? On top of all these other issues he had? I think he had like what did they say? He had like a tumor or something. Unbelievable. Like, how anybody would allow him to do anything, I mean, doctor-wise would have, I don't know how that's even possible. So you have to realize there's so many insurance policies that they have to take out when you go out on tour, and I don't think he would have passed
Don't overthink it.
No, you're right. Let's move on to letter number 7. And it comes from Air Force J in Half Moon Bay. He comes out swinging, Dave. I'm warning you. He says, I know. This guy's unbelievable. He goes, I know I'm taking up some space here with a second letter. And however, after listening to the rest of this podcast, I wanted to chime in about two things. Number one, while my tastes were more in line with Dave M's top 10 list in October, there is something I noticed with Dave C's list, which I expected you might speak on, but never